Welcome to the Hidden Why podcast, episode 1143. I'm Leigh Martinuzzi, the host of the show, and thank you for tuning in to this week's episode. I have a very special guest on the show today, and it is none other than Inna Segal. We're discussing her book, The Secret Language of Your Body, the essential guide to health and wellness. Now, it's really quite in depth, I'll be honest. So we've looked at it as a broader picture of how the body is trying to communicate us and tell us what ailments potentially we need to heal. And I guess the theme and the main message for me is that we need to delve within rather than looking for external answers to our pains, whether that's physical, emotional pains that we have. It's actually delving within and starting to listen to the body more. And that's exactly where Inna and I head with this conversation. So book link in the show notes, guys. Probably worth picking up a copy to have a full read to get some really in-depth insights. Because as I said, this conversation is more of a broader overview of her work. So very fascinating topic, and I do hope you enjoy it. We'll chat at the other end. G'day, Inna. Welcome to the Hidden Why podcast. Great to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I often have guests over in the States or somewhere overseas, but you're very local down in Brisbane.
I am. It's very rare as well, I think, for me to speak to somebody from the same part of the world.
Yeah, you do a lot of work with people, right? And I guess that's predominantly online these days, but is that right, or am I?
Yeah, it has been since COVID, predominantly online and a little bit of live events, but mainly I just find it easier, I'm gonna say.
Yeah, a lot of us do. I was talking to someone yesterday about it, and whilst I value that technology allows us to do that, and for me, this podcast is purely based online. I do appreciate the face-to-face, human-to-human connection, though, and I think that's something that it's sort of taken away from us a little bit. But look, and so you've been doing your work for 20 years. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do. It's probably a good segue.
Thank you. Well, I have been doing it for about 25 years now. I started very young. I was in a lot of pain. I had psoriasis. I had lower back pain that became very inflamed and sciatica. I had digestive issues, anxiety, and like most people, I was just going from one medical doctor to another, or that kind of sometimes physiotherapist, and this just wasn't really helping me. I was getting worse, and then I started exploring alternative medicine because I met my partner at the time, and when I was 18, he was very open-minded in terms of looking at, how do we understand more about our bodies and selves and go to alternative medicine. But to be fair, I went to all of these types of kind of sessions with the attitude that, the same way that I would go to a doctor, you know what you're doing, fix me. I pay you, you do your job, and then we're completed, and I should be healed. But that just wasn't happening for me, and we got to a point where I was in agony and couldn't walk pretty much without a lot of help, because sciatica can get really,
Mm,
really bad.
yeah.
Um, yeah, in terms of, sometimes I couldn't cross the road, or I would be halfway through and someone would have to drag me, often my mom.
Wow.
So yeah, it got pretty bad. And I was seeing this chiropractor about 3 times a week and for about a year. And then I had this turning point where I basically, as usual, went to see him, but I was complaining. I was really feeling like a victim. And he, in this particular moment, came out of his office and he said to me, your body's stuck. And I was like, yeah, that part I'm aware of. What are you going to do to help me? And I really think that he, after knowing me for about a year, he wanted me to take some action. And I think he wanted to shake me out of this. Everyone else knows your body as opposed to you yourself. And so he actually said, your body wants to be stuck, go home. There's nothing I can do to help you. And I was enraged on the way home. But at the same time,
That was your physiotherapist.
This is my chiropractor, yeah.
Hmm.
At the same time, it was really interesting that I had been studying. I was at uni, so I'd been studying linguistics because I actually wanted to be a writer. I wanted to do
Okay.
acting, I wanted to do writing, and because linguistics is actually very complex and it's breaking down language and trying to understand it and so on, it occurred to me at the time that maybe my body had a language and I was speaking this language and I just did not have any clue or understanding of what I was saying. And being the type of person that, I'm very curious. I want to understand things. I need detail. I need to, see how things work. And so I made a decision that I was going to heal myself. I mean, I didn't know how to do that, I'm going to say.
Yeah.
So my journey was essentially going home, working with breath, working with just placing my hands on my back, asking lots of questions. And as I was doing that, without expecting it, to be honest, I ended up, I guess, opening up an ability to see into my back. That's kind of where it went.
Yeah.
And from there, I started asking a lot of questions of what led me to be sick at that age. I was not even 21 at the time. So I, again, I didn't really expect much, but it was fascinating because I think I was so focused. I was so ready, to understand. I really felt like I tuned into this wisdom of my body. And I saw that. I think I was saying to you, Leigh, when we first started chatting, that I was born in Belarus, so Eastern Europe. And I saw how coming to Australia, that whole journey of getting here, not being able to speak the language, having a lot of conflict at school because I was bullied, because I was different and I didn't come from the place that people were accepted from.
Hmm.
And my parents, they were struggling. And so I absorbed a lot of the struggle. And, my family came from a lot of poverty I mean, when I grew up in Belarus, we didn't have a toilet in the house. We didn't have a bathroom. We didn't have, running water. There were two families living in a tiny kind of environment. So it was very, very different coming to the Western country. And
Hmm.
I guess it was hard to fit in. It was hard to find yourself when the culture and everything was so, so different. And so I had a lot of realizations about that. I had a lot of realizations around my own family, my grandparents who'd gone through enormous loss. I had gone through loss of a child when I was 20, where I
Hmm.
ended up having a stillborn baby, which is pretty horrendous as an
Yeah.
experience. And so there was a lot going on in terms of pain for me and loss, and trying to understand why all these things happened to me, and moving from that victim of like, why is life doing this to me? Why am I going through all this, into, okay, how do I take charge of my life and how do I become, I guess, a leader of my own life, as opposed to, you know, being bombarded by all the fear, that I was experiencing, and
Yeah.
loss
Yeah.
and lack and everything.
Yeah. Okay, there's a lot to unpack. So, I mean, when I look at this, the secret language of your body, it's very spiritual. A lot of people might go, "Oh, this is too much. It's a bit woo-woo, right?"
Yeah,
Because we're so used to, um, we got a pain, we go to the doctor, or we go
yeah.
to the chiropractor, or something like that, rather than actually just listening to our body and self-healing. So, I want to really get into this because I think it's a really important one for me as well, but everyone listening. And I guess it's firstly just understanding this idea of the secret language of the body. Can you elaborate a bit more on that? Like, what is the secret language?
I think the secret language is actually us opening our mind to the idea, and I think it's a big stretch when I explain this, that every part of our body actually has wisdom and is and logic, and that it's operating on, well, let's break this down. So if I ask most people, what do you think your brain is for? They'll say, well, thinking, of course, and clarity and decision making. So to me, then, okay, well, if you have headaches, for instance, really bad headaches or migraines, and I've worked with countless people with this,
Yeah.
then what other kinds of things do you think that could cause them? And so if we go overwhelm, stress, anger, not knowing how to deal with things, let's say having, I know you probably relate to having a business, so it's like how to deal with all the different things. But the more you do, the more there is to do, the more successful you become, the more there is,
Yeah.
and so the more that happens, you have tension, and that tension in the head in particular eventually leads to pain. And then we go, what about our eyes? So I've been fascinated by it, partly because I, have seen so many people around me wear glasses from a young age. And I was like, well, what's eyes about? Well, we know it's about seeing. So there is a logic where you go, so it depends on when somebody's eyesight becomes weakened, what was going on? What was going on in their life? So, for instance, if it's a child, what I've observed, because I've asked a lot of questions,
Hmm.
is that very often there are secrets in the family, or somebody in the family is potentially overwhelming or controlling maybe even somebody else in the family and saying, this is my way and I don't necessarily care about your way. Like this is, so there's that element that comes in. And again, I'm not saying about people being born with it. I'm saying when it starts to develop and what's the child absorbing. And it's the same as I thought about this a lot, where let's say we have, as we get older, right, we start to see our family members get sick. Most of us do. We start to have more stresses. We start to see that the world is not as fun and lovely as a place as we thought of it when we were children.
Yeah.
And so we see and we experience the fear, the aggression, the things that, we might look at politics and go, oh my God, what's going on here? And the more we kind of subconsciously, I'm going to say, I don't want to see this. I don't want to, I can't handle it. It's too much. The body's wisdom goes, well, how do I help you? How do I support you in this? How do I'll blur your vision, or I'll make your, eyes really hard, or whatever it is, so that I'll take away the flexibility. And I mean, there is a physiological aspect of us staring, let's say, at this screen all the time. And,
Yeah.
I'm not saying that there's no physical aspect involved in things, but what I am saying is that every part of the body has intelligence. So the throat, I see so many people developing thyroid conditions as they get, in their 40s. And so to me, it's like, well, why? Why do we have throat issues? Why do we have neck issues? And I mean, with the neck, I think that we already have a saying where we know. We know. So we say, oh, this person's a pain in the neck. Well, let's break that down and go, if I'm communicating with somebody, right? And most of us, let's just be honest, are not great at communicating. We haven't been taught how to, especially with people that are close to us. So we end up getting aggressive, we end up getting frustrated, we end up having conflicts, and that energy goes into your throat, and you kind of go, should I say this to this person? Maybe I won't say anything. Maybe I'll just push it away. I'll push it back, and they get neck pains. And when I used to do one-on-one sessions, and I teach mostly now, but when I did, I would have people come to me, and this was constant. And they've met me the first time in their whole life, and they've been with their partner, whoever, for 20 years. And they're telling me secrets and things that their partner doesn't know in the first hour of us meeting. And, I used to think, this is nuts. This is crazy. No wonder you have thyroid issues. No wonder you have issues around your throat. So I think when we look at what does the body do?
Yeah.
And we start to understand that it's not kind of rocket science to go, there must be wisdom. There must be some wisdom of why different parts of the body break down.
Okay. So, I mean, all the stress, trauma, things in our life compiling up in the body that then causes some level of physical pain. Is that
Yeah.
what's happening? It's
Yeah.
interesting about the eyesight. I was going, oh, that's an interesting theory, but it's kind of yeah. I mean, if you think about it, like I always think the screens, was a big one. My eyesight deteriorated um, in my late 30s, I suppose, and a lot of stress in my life, my work, a lot more screens in my life too, I guess, maybe contributing to that. But maybe that's a signal for my eyes to say, hey, you need to break away from this and do something else. So, well, I'm going to make it harder for you to do it. Potentially, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway, um, but that those ailments in the body. So, our body in pain, rather than just going, I'll take some Panadol or something like that, we should maybe tune in and listen to the body. And how does the physical and the conscious mind interrelate?
Well, I think that ideally, and I'm going to say it in this way, that most of us have numbed ourselves.
Yep.
And the way we do it is through being outside of ourselves. So, like you said, a lot of screens, a lot of running things, a lot of being in our minds. So, it does make sense that in our culture, we would go, I just want to get rid of this pain. Let's run for some medication. The problem, I guess, that happens is that medication has side effects and pretty bad side effects often, especially accumulated side effects. And it doesn't actually mostly deal with anything. And so if you when you tune into the body, if we're going to talk about it in that way and how you brought it up, the body essentially says to you, hey, this doesn't work. Like this way of being doesn't work. You need to change, right? You need to change your perspective. If it's traumatic, like let's say we talk about a traumatic, stressful situations and events.
Hmm.
In terms of our mind, the reason we're so stressed is because of how we're perceiving it, right? We're perceiving an event or an experience as being stressful, overwhelming, difficult, and we just keep going. So the wisdom of the body will go, well, hold on a sec. What is it that's causing you stress? And what can you do about it before it gets too much, before it becomes pain? Or because before it becomes a disease, what can you do about it? How can you deal with that? And that could be anything from having conversation with someone to slowing down to going to making certain decisions, right? So it could be all sorts of things, but we don't.
Yeah.
We just go, oh, my body's not working for me. Okay, I'm just going to keep pushing. I'm going to keep doing things. The same with trauma. So let's say we have a really traumatic experience. And what I found is that you can almost break the body up into different 7-year periods in terms of reflecting on where something came from and why. So, for instance, I was working with somebody recently who had reproductive issues. Well, he had prostate cancer, and I know, for instance, if my theory of breaking things up inside the body is
Yeah.
correct, that where the prostate is, the time period we're looking at is 7 to 14 years of age. So again, we're looking at these timelines where there were traumatic or difficult situations that often come out way, way later in life, could be in your mid 60s or could be in 50s or 70s, depends on how you live your life. And the more that I was reflecting on it and kind of looking into it, the more I found out that, well, in terms of this particular person, his mum left when he was, I think, 13, and she kind of attacked him. She said, oh, things like, you know, he had a brother as well. So I'm not like, these boys are disgusting, or I don't want to spend time with them. And there's this massive, massive rejection.
Hmm.
Now, the body has a tendency to hold that unless you come back to that experience and go, oh, that was traumatic, that was painful. Somehow, maybe there's a blockage, or it's, I was affected.
Yeah.
I was affected. How do I transform that? Meaning, I would need to meet that experience from a wiser self inside of me. And I might need to go, well, how old was I? I was 13. Well, is that 13-year-old part of me still somehow operational?
Hmm.
And what was really interesting for me when I was exploring all this was when I looked at psychology and I looked at what Jung was saying, who was kind of the father of modern psychology. He was talking about something called archetypes. And he was saying that universally, all of us have parts of ourselves that create a personality. And those parts we're going to call archetypes. And when these parts, let's say, of our childhood, get stuck or stunted because of trauma, rejection, developmental issues that occurred in our how we grew up in our family,
Yeah.
then eventually there is an emotional, physical impact.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and it's also one of the best ways, in my experience, in my work, to figure out memory, because most of us go, when there is a traumatic memory, where we try to get out of there. We're like fight or flight or freeze response in terms of our nervous system.
Hmm.
And I don't want to be here. I don't want to know this. And so essentially, then the nervous system starts, because the nervous system is the communication system of the body. And what it starts doing is it starts going, well, I'm going to freeze some parts. I'm going to freeze some pathways. So now you don't have access to this. And now your body's not actually working optimally, but you don't know until it gets often too late.
Right.
And so we need to, by tuning in, we're actually starting to go, I want a relationship with my own body.
Right. So a lot of these, past traumas, stressful experiences that we all go through to some extent, getting stored in the body and then basically shut off by the nervous system so it doesn't annoy us. Yet ultimately, it shows up at some part in our life as some sort of physical pain because we're not releasing those stresses and emotional traumas and things like that. Does that summarize it?
Yeah, I'm just going to add to it that it can show up as physical pain, but it can also show up as pretty deep emotional pain and relationship pain, because we have a tendency of, when we don't process things, um, to take it out on people who are close to us.
Yeah.
So we start having more trauma in that sense, more conflict, more frustration with the people that we love.
Yeah. So it's kind of connected anyway. So that trauma is whether it comes out as an emotional
Yeah.
issue or a physical pain, that's potentially where it's stemming from. If I have a leg pain, like let's say I'm really struggling to walk because my leg's really aching and been to the doctors, they give me medication to numb the pain, but that doesn't actually fix it. Is that likely to be related to something like that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Every part of the body is. And if we're looking at legs, for instance, again, we'd ask that question. And I like to be logical in, when I'm sharing something. So what do legs do? They're, they hold your weight and they also move you forward, right? You have to walk. They help you,
Yeah.
you know. And so if we're having issues walking, we might break it down and we might go, okay, is it both legs or is it one leg?
Yeah.
And if it's, let's say it's the right leg, then without a doubt, most of the time I'm going to say, well, this is something to do with somebody's work career or relationships with somebody who's masculine in their life. Often all of it, where they're feeling stuck, they can't move forward, and for some reason their body, that part of the body said, okay, stop, 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 stop. You need to fix and look at things in your life. Now, many people, for many people, there's resistance to that because they think they're right. They think that what they did is right, or and so there is a challenge to really face some of the, I'm going to say it's almost like raw truth, that honesty in yourself of, okay, well, why is my body saying this? Why is it
Mm,
showing me this?
mm. How do we then tap into to understand that? Like, is it through meditation or calmness? Like, what do we do to, so if I've got a pain in the leg, let's just go back to that example. How do I try to understand where that's coming from
Well,
without seeing someone like yourself that might be an expert?
I think that I guess, this is where my book, The Secret Language of Your Body, is really helpful, because it does give you a guideline,
Yeah.
right? So you can open it on the legs and you can go, what do I relate to here? Like, what is it that I'm, where in my life essentially am I stuck and not moving forward? And so it gives you some kind of a direction potentially to start to reflect on, because most people are not familiar with their body or essentially what every organ does. And so maybe they do need a little bit of guidance, which is actually why I wrote the book, The Secret Language of Your
Uh-huh.
Body. And, from there, there's so many things you can do, to connect to the body. That's the first step, is
Yeah.
if we can, let's say, stand, we need to move the body first. We need to get some blood flow in through our body, because it puts us inside the body. Otherwise, we're in our minds. And so just to go straight to meditation can be challenging for most people if that's not what they do regularly,
Yeah.
right? Because they don't know how to, because
Yeah.
their body's numb. So I actually found that if possible, they need to move it. Or if let's say you have leg pain, you need to massage it. You need to get some kind of movement going there that can create a connection to your mind, to you being able to ask questions. And then I always say, if possible, because essentially connecting to the body, sensitizing yourself. It's like learning a different language, right? We have to concentrate, we have to connect, we have to be open to that language. And so, placing your hands on a part of your body, breathing into that area. So you have to breathe into it, because what essentially happens is we hold our breath
Mm.
most of, a lot of the time, especially when we're stressed. And so actually breathing into that area and then exploring and asking questions can start to give you insight. And maybe if you've never done it, it may not be the first time that you do that. And this is also why I guess my Secret Language of Your Body book has been so successful, is because people go, I'm overwhelmed. Let me connect to, what did Inna say in the book? And then they go, wow, I relate to this. Let me think about what it is. Let me feel it, into it. And then in the book, I give you processes where you can start to, and that could be anything from breathing, pressure point, changing your perspective about something, exploring, having a potential conversation with somebody that needs to be had, creating boundaries,
Yeah.
resting, maybe, you
Yeah.
know.
So so let's just go physical pain first, really. If there's um, pain in different parts of the body, does that relate to some different ailment, like some different symptom, whether it's past trauma or current anxiety or whatever? Does it show
Well,
up differently in the body? Like, can you study that?
absolutely,
Yeah.
100%. And what most people don't realize is that if you do have a chronic condition, where it is now is usually not where it started. And where it started, there's been a pathway. And this is part of why you might have several conditions. Because when we start to break it down and go, well, hold on a sec, let's look at these several conditions, and let's look at your life story. Let's look at
Mm.
what happened. I can pretty much, create a map and connect all of everything that happened to why you have this. And I can do it, from my experience, both you tell me the stories you've experienced, and I can probably point out which parts of your body have issues, or you tell me the issues that you have, and I can tell you the story of your life pretty much
Yeah.
without details, but the general story of what causes these particular issues inside your
Right.
body.
And that's the same with organ parts, heart, kidneys, livers. Like if we're feeling pressure or pain in any of those spots too, that relates to something. And is that separate from the emotional stuff that we might carry? Like if someone's always angry, for example.
Well, it's not, yeah, it's not separate at all because let's say if somebody's always angry, then pretty much without doubt they're going to have some issue to do with liver or the gallbladder. So, when you start to emotions are, I'm going to say like that they're specific in terms of, let's say we go to the kidneys, we're going to have grief, sadness, and fear inside the kidneys without a doubt if there is a kidney issue. And I'm going to say, well, because of where the kidneys are and where different parts of the body are, this is potentially connected to your family history. So I would pretty much bet, anything on the fact that fear runs in your family and there's grief that has been unprocessed by many, many people, which is actually would be different if the grief or the sadness shows up in the lungs or there's a lung issue,
Hmm.
because the front of the body and the back of the body tell us a different story, the same as the left and the right sides.
Right.
And so when you kind of really study the body as a map and break it down, you go, oh, okay, well, that makes sense of why this is occurring. So if I can give you an example, I was teaching a workshop and there was a 25-year-old girl, this is several years ago, woman, I should say, came to me during the break and she said, look, I have cancer of my spine, in my spine. And I'm, I've been really working on my spine, but it just doesn't seem to be going. And I said to her, well, okay, um, let me actually tune into you. I want to, because we only had 10 minutes
Hmm.
really in the break. Let me, I need to connect the pieces. Spine doesn't like make full sense to me at this age unless I'm looking at it and seeing where it started. And as I was kind of checking in, I saw her throat and I saw her lungs, and I was like, oh, okay, interesting. And I said to her, you know, this is to tell me about your childhood. Tell me about your childhood. When you grew up, were you given a voice? Were you able to, because again, the cancer was in the upper part of the spine. Like, were you given an opportunity to communicate or were you shut down the whole time? And she said, shut down. And I said to her, hey, interesting. Do you feel in your life, do you feel, especially from your family, from your childhood, from potentially your father, because it was very clear to me that it did come from her father because of the side it was on, which was on the right side. It's like, do you feel like he's a control, in your life? Do you give your power away to him? Is he controlling? And it was like so clearly obvious because she said to me, well, actually, I can't even stay till the end of the workshop. And I said, why is that? And she said, well, because my father drove me here and he's decided that he doesn't want to stay. And, I always have to do what he says. And it was like, well, this cancer did not start today. It started it started in childhood.
Hmm.
And I said to her, until you can bring your voice back, there's no point working on the spine because the spine is the end result of what actually happened and where it started. And now we actually need to work on the communication, on the boundaries, on strengthening yourself and your ability to speak.
Yep. Yep. And so did she?
She started it,
Yeah.
but um, it's a journey, right?
Yeah.
Where you go back and forth. So I would say she's still on the journey.
There is a lot of depth in your work by the sounds of it. And obviously you've spent a couple of decades or more, haven't you,
Mhm.
studying
Yep.
this? Wow.
I have.
So the book is sold over 1 million copies, 27 different languages. So obviously reaching a lot of people and doing a lot of good things for people. Otherwise, it probably wouldn't be so popular. So congratulations to you on your book. And you've written a number of books too now, haven't you?
I have. I
Yeah.
have. I
Yeah.
have. I,
So the
I,
secret language of your body, Ina. Thank you for coming on the podcast. I'll stick a link to the book in the show notes for everyone listening out there as well. So make sure you go out there and pick up a copy and connect with Ina as well. Ina, any final thoughts before we wrap things up?
I would say what I really want to do is also encourage people to try this, right? Because we can talk about it forever, but without trying it, it's just talk. And so I'd love for people also to go to my website, which is innasegal.com, and go to, I have several masterclasses there, and you can actually choose which one. If you want to do one to do with the secret language of your body, you just have to go to innasegal.com slash / secret and just start exploring. Or you can go to, I mean, there's several, whatever one appeals to you.
Yeah.
But the idea is, and in each masterclass, I give you processes that help you to connect to your body and understand your body. And I want to complete with the fact that your body's always speaking, and it can be your friend or it can be your enemy, depends on whether you connect with it and you're willing to start listening and start to understand that the wisdom is really, really inside of you. Or if you're just always going to be outside of yourself searching for that magic pill. And I'm going to say the pill's really inside of you.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. I don't know enough about your work, but I certainly believe we need to tap in and listen within a lot more than we do. And that's the journey itself. So I'll put the link to the website in the show notes as well, guys. Check it out, Inna Segal. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Till next time, peace, passion, and purpose. See you soon. There you have it, another fantastic episode here at the Hidden Why podcast. Once again, please head on over to thehiddenwhy.com. You can check out the full episode there, the show notes, and all the links to Ina as well. So make sure you reach out. There's a great deal of work behind the secret language of the body, which I am intrigued by, and I think it's worthy of delving in further. Should you have some pain, some ailments, some emotional trauma that isn't being processed, this might be a good place to start. As always, guys, here to help you on your journey to live more fully, have more meaning, and find more joy. If you'd like to connect, reach out through the website or on social media, Facebook and Instagram, the best options for that. And make sure you subscribe so you can stay up to date with all the latest episodes. Thanks again. Until next time, peace, passion, and purpose. See you soon.